So I've seen Civil War, and it's easily one of my favourite movies of the year so far. Kirsten Dunst, who you may know from the original Spider-Man trilogy, is the lead here, and she's accompanied by Kaylee Spaney from Priscilla and Wagner Moura, who I know from Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. And honestly, as much as Kirsten Dunst was really good, Kaylee Spaney and Wagner Moura were the standouts for me here, especially Wagner Moura. Kaylee Spaney is getting a lot of praise for her role, rightly so, but for me, the emotion that Wagner Moura showed on screen was just next level. He blew me away, really impressed by his performance, and honestly, the performances across the whole board are really good. Stephen McKinley Henderson is also fantastic, and Jesse Plemons is in this movie for about 5 minutes, and when he shows up, he steals the whole show. His scene as like a crazy American soldier who is holding our main characters hostage is next level. It had me on the edge of my seat and made me feel so anxious, and the visuals that were in that scene were just mind-blowing and kind of horrifying at the same time, and that is something that I would kind of describe this whole movie as: mind-blowing but horrifying. The visuals are just so well done, the cinematography is beautiful, and Alex Garland, who wrote and directed this movie, he did such a good job of making this version of the USA feel very lived in. And what I mean by that is that this is a civil war, right? And if we got to see the action full on in like Washington DC and nothing else, we might have just had to presume what it was like in other states. But since they go on a road trip from New York to Washington, and we kind of get to see camps of people with no homes, we get to see towns that are pretending that this stuff isn't happening, and that makes it feel very lived in, and I loved that. The sound design is also phenomenal, and the soundtrack is decent. Now, I think the soundtrack could have been better, but I know a lot of people are loving it. Personally, there were some moments where there was a scene, for example, that sticks in my head, where there's 3 soldiers and a group of people kind of capture them, and then there's like a country pop rock song that plays, and I kind of wish it was more emotional, if that makes sense. I kind of think that scene in particular, the music took me out of it, but that's just a tiny little gripe from me. But overall, like, the sound design is phenomenal. There's especially some moments in the final act where they're in Washington DC and there's a full-on military war going on, and you get taken out of the gunfire and the chaos for like 1 or 2 seconds to see a snap of a picture that the main characters have taken, and it goes completely silent. And then it goes back to the chaos, completely silent, and repeats over and over. And it's a really cool touch, and kind of made it a lot more scary, because you're going from utter silence to all-out war, and it was really nicely done. But like, what I will say to finish this review is that this movie is phenomenal. Cinematography great, character performance is fantastic, visually stunning, sound design is great, soundtrack is good too. But if you're expecting a full-on military focused war movie with action left, right and center, you're not gonna get what you want out of this. This is mainly focused on these journalists, these photographers, these press people. It is their story. It's not necessarily the military story, but I do think that's actually what makes this movie stand out, and what makes it, for me, really unique. And that's why I'm going to give it 10 out of 10, 5 stars. It blew me away. Honestly, start to finish, I was on the edge of my seat. There are some horrible images in here. Be prepared to be like, whoa, they actually just did that. And be prepared for some jaw-dropping moments, because there is a lot of them in here. I actually just had such a great time with it. Honestly, I can't really find many faults. Yeah, I said about the soundtrack, but that's kind of it. This is a really great movie.